What's up everyone, and welcome on back for another video here on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. For those who do not know me, hello and welcome. My name is Monet. I am 28 years old, and here on this channel I am sharing my financial journey. I personally utilize the cash envelope method, so that is what a lot of my budget videos consist of. I've shown how I've gotten out of debt, and now I am just saving and investing, and again just learning how to do all of this stuff in my 20s and managing that. So if you are interested in any of those things, then definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and join the family. We would love to have you, and make sure you hit the bell so that you will always be notified whenever I upload my next video. But for my returning subscribers, welcome back. Thank you for joining. I am glad to have you. And within today's video, we are going to be doing our monthly reset, as we always do. At the end of each month, I like to close my budget, see how I actualized compared to how I budgeted, and then I set up for the new month. So if you're interested in seeing that process and seeing how all of that is going to go, then of course, just keep on watching. All right, so we are back at our template, and we're just gonna dive right in, starting with March. If you are unaware and you enjoy this template, this is something that I created myself. So if you are interested in it and you want to check it out, the links for all of that information is down below. You can find it on my website and my Etsy, so be sure to check it out. And as always, appreciate anybody who has purchased, support, and who is enjoying the template. So getting into March, the first thing that I'm gonna do is go ahead and filter on remaining actuals, so that as we update our numbers, it's going to read all of the actual numbers. And let's just go ahead and get started with March. So March just was a crazy, unexpected month filled with a lot of things. Some good, some just a little bit more hectic than I'm used to. But looking at the income that we were able to bring in at the start of the month, all I did was budget my 2 paychecks, because that is what I thought I was going to get. I am paid bi-weekly and I am salary, so I only budgeted my full-time income, which came in exactly how I budgeted. So $4,322 is what I brought in from that income source. However, March was a nice surprise, because when I came back from my vacation, I found out that we were actually getting a bonus this month. So didn't account for my bonus, and for the bonus I was able to bring in $1,335. In terms of my bonus, I still get taxes taken out, I still get my 401k contribution taken out. So after all of that, this is what I was left with, and I'm happy. Any extra money is good money. So for the entire month of March, I thought I was only going to bring in $4,332, but actually we have $5,657 that I was able to work with. And now that we have all of this income, let's go ahead and see how I budgeted that out. So first we are going to get started with the bills, and good old rent, of course, that is never going to change. So the $1,680 that I budgeted is what I brought in. In terms of my utilities, that's my water, gas, trash, and sewer. It varies, but I was right on the nail this month. I budgeted $45, and that is exactly what was due. That hardly ever happens, so that was nice. Regarding my internet, I'm normally charged $51, but when I set up for the month of March, I informed you guys that we were out of power for like 5 hours. So my internet provider said we were going to get some money taken off of our bill due to the inconvenience. So normally pay $51, but I was actually only charged $48. Is it really a discount? Not really, but we'll take the dollars where we can get the dollars. And then for electricity, throughout winter, I budget crazy, because I feel like my bills for electricity always is crazy. So I thought $250 was what I was probably going to get charged, but actually I was only charged $136, so that was great to see. We love a lower bill. And for my rollover, I use this as like my buffer or my cushion. So normally whatever money is left after I finish budgeting everything else, I will come back and put whatever's left in there. So we will scroll to the other stuff and come back to that. Now we can go ahead and look at my expenses. So as I said at the start of this month, I was on vacation. So I left, I believe, February 28th, and I didn't get back until March 12th or March 13th. So for half of the month, I wasn't even here. I was on a cruise enjoying my life, so that was great. So my expenses weren't really that high because it wasn't really a full month's worth of spending that I had to do. So with saying that, gas I budgeted $60, but I actually only needed $30 for the month within there. Spending I budgeted $180, but I only used $125. Groceries, dramatically low. I budgeted $300 and I only actually needed $180 for the month. Following that is toiletries. That was $90, but I did need a little bit more, so $115 for the month in there. Clothing, $60, but your girl has a lot of events that are coming up and I needed some clothes for those, so a little bit more there with $105 going for that category. And then for eating out, very low, very minimal, $80, but I actually only used or added $15 to that category for the month. So that is how we are looking in terms of expenses. All right, so moving on to my savings. In terms of my sinking funds, annual payments budgeted $45 and I stayed on track there, so $45 there. Car maintenance also received the $40. Car insurance with $80. Christmas received $40. Gifts I only gave $10 for the month. Household did receive $20. Medical was nothing. Travel, I budgeted $300, but actually gave myself $400. And then for emergency fund, since I had that bonus, that was really majority of where I wanted to put that. Since it was unexpected money, I try to put that straight towards whatever priority savings I'm focusing on. And of course, we know that's my emergency fund. So for the month, I was able to add $1,740 within that area. So that is great. And then looking at investments for my Roth IRA, I budgeted $400. And this was another area with the bonus. I wanted to give a little bit more to my Roth. So actually gave $800 for the month within there. So in terms of all of the breakdowns, that is everything. And if we scroll back to the front and we see we are left with $3. So I'm just gonna go ahead and drop that $3 in my rollover. And here we are left with a zero-based budget, which is how I personally like to budget. So scrolling down and looking at our income summary and see for the full picture how everything shaked out. In terms of our income, as we know, that was a positive differential. So an additional $135 that we didn't account for. And then collectively that just brought everything else also in a good position. So I was able to spend less and add more to certain areas. So looking at our bills, actualized under $115. So bills in total was only $1,912 for the month. Similar story with expenses. We were able to be down $200 to what we budgeted. So actualized with only $570 within that area. In terms of savings, of course, that's the biggest increase. Added an additional $1,250. So overall for savings, that was a total of $2,375. And then a positive differential also with investments. So we added $400 more than what we budgeted. So the total for investments was $800 for the month. And debt is zero. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I am debt free. So there is nothing to account there. So our total leftover is zero. And once again, zero-based budget. Every dollar has to have a place. So if we want to look at that in terms of our lovely pie charts and looking at the budgeted versus the actual, big differences here. So for bills, we actualized with about 34% of our income going towards there. In terms of expenses, about 10% went there. Savings with the biggest portion sitting at 42% of our income going there, and then 14% in terms of investments. That is looking good. And then if we want to look at our savings breakdown, this is just a pie chart to break down what percent of my savings is going towards what area. And as I said, my main priority is emergency fund, so that is where most of my money should be going. And as we can see, about 73% of the savings went towards emergency fund, so that is great there. But overall for the month of March, that is where we decided to allocate everything in terms of the budget. And now we can scroll down to the bottom and look at our expense tracker to see what exactly did I spend my money on for the month. So for the categories that I track within my expense tracker, I have gas, spending, groceries, toiletries, clothing, and eating out. Those are just the ones I choose to track and manage, but of course you track whatever you feel like you need to monitor. For the month across all of those categories, that was a total of $661 spent within these areas, so not too bad. But as I said, half of the month I wasn't here, so that kind of shows with my expenses because I really didn't spend that much for the month. But let's still go ahead and look at each category line by line just to see how we did. So once I check this, it highlights how many times I spent that category for the month. So for gas, the total spent was $37, and I went to the gas station twice. So that looks good to me. That makes sense. Overall, in terms of a percent, that's 5.6% that went towards gas. Next, we can look at spending. Spending as a total, I spent $120, and that was about 18% of my spending looking at the pie chart. Basically, the spending that I did in Florida. So before I went on the boat, I was with my cousin for a week within her home. So any of the money that I spent physically on the boat, I did take that out of my travel sinking fund. But for the time where technically the trip didn't start yet, I was taking out of spending. And I went to multiple places while I was there with her, but I just lumped it all together when I came back. And that was a total of $86 I basically spent before my vacation started. And that was for things like food. We went and got some alcohol. So it was just little miscellaneous things, but for the most part, I really didn't have to get too much. My cousin basically had me covered, which was nice. And then the only other spending that I really did was for Amazon. I honestly can't even remember what I bought, but took that out of spending. So next we can go to groceries. Groceries, that was a total of $278 spent for the month within there. And that's 42% of the chart. So shows where majority of my money went. And this was basically me just stopping at Costco and Kroger. When I came back, I had to refill on a few things within my fridge. So that was just me doing that there. Toiletries for the month, that was $50 spent. And that was me going to Kroger. I think I just needed like toilet paper, tissue. So nothing major there, and that was about 7.6% of my spending. And then here we have clothing. That was a total of $142. So that's 20%, or really 22% of my spending. I'm normally not, spending a lot on clothes, but as I said, I have quite a few events coming up, some concerts and things that, I want to try and look cute for when I go. So I did stop and buy some things. I got a good chunk of it at Windsor. I've been sleeping on Windsor. I used to shop there back in the day, and then I fell off, and now I'm back, and they have some cute little things. So bought some things from there, got some things from Burlington, and then Ross. So that is where majority of the spending went there. And then lastly is eating out with $34. That's only about 5%. And yeah, those when I wanted my little sweet treats. So I went to KFC, Dunkin', McDonald's, random things like that, but not too bad overall. All right, so after we've looked at what we spent, I like to come and look at my left to spend section. And some people were a little bit confused, or I got a comment just asking to go a little bit more in detail of what this area is. So since I utilize the cash envelope system, this just helps me track exactly where my envelopes ended at the end of the month, so that then when I go into the next month, I'm still continuously tracking to see what I'm spending my money on. So this left to spend section is basically the money that I still have remaining in my envelopes today. And I like to look at this to see if I have enough money within these categories until I get paid again next month. So currently, I think I get paid next week. So basically, I'm looking at this column and I'm saying, okay, if I don't get paid again until one more week, does this look like I'm going to be okay? So the main things is gas, of course. I want to make sure I have gas money if I need to go anywhere, and some grocery money in case I want to get some food. And then, maybe some miscellaneous spending for random things. So this column focuses again on the same categories as we spoke to over here. And this rollover balance is the money from the previous month. And then this actual column is adding any money that you added to these categories for the month. So whatever we put up at the top here is what is accounting for the actual money that we're adding. And the left to spend column takes whatever you had at the start of the month, whatever you added during the month, subtracting anything you spent for the month, and then that is how you get your left to spend number. It kind of just makes sense in my head, but I can see how, someone might get confused, but it just works for me, and hopefully it works for other people too. So looking at what is left to spend for these categories, we see that gas is at $91, spending has $100, groceries with $172, toiletries $95, clothing $8, and then eating out with $47. Overall, for myself, I feel like that's good. This will last me until I get my next paycheck, as I said, so I don't see any concerns there. But for the month of March, you guys, that will complete the wrap on that. And that is honestly just how I budget and close out for the month. Now, another comment that I did get asked is if I can go into detail of the savings tracker. So if you aren't familiar with my budget template, I also have a savings tracker. And the person basically asked, how do I account for my sinking funds within my budget? So as I told you guys, when I was on my travel, you don't see any travel expenses on the monthly tab because I took all of those things out of my sinking fund. So she basically asks, like, where's that money? How do you track it? And this is what I use to monitor that. So the savings tracker basically lists all of the categories for my sinking funds or any savings that I want. They pull in from each monthly tab, and then you can have some set goals for certain things that you want. So right now my emergency fund has a goal of $13,000, and we see that I still have the $9,510, and it's showing that I'm 73% away from that goal. You can also see up here how much you need to save. Since emergency fund is the only thing that I'm tracking right now, I am seeing that I'm $3,490 away from my goal. So it's just a nice reminder and a motivator. And then here collectively you can see the total of all of your savings. But the main thing of how I track it and do everything is that I add to this savings withdrawal tracker. So if you watch my sinking funds updates, which I haven't done one in a while, but this is basically me tracking that. I thought I would just throw in some of the spending that I did for the month of March just to share with you guys. So I always just note it as whatever the month is. So 3/1 will be noted for all of those, even though technically I didn't spend from these categories on the first. It's just easier for me to put it in that way. So let's go ahead and document basically the spending that I did for the cruise. So I would notate this as cruise spending. And the category that I took this out of would be my travel. And for the cruise, that was a total of $275 that I took out of that envelope for that. So that is counting for all of my Ubers and Lyfts to and from the airport. I had to check my bag at the airport, so it's paying for that. Any spending that I did on the cruise, so for any souvenirs, any drinks, any food, any excursions that we did, I took it out of travel. So holistically, everything related to my traveling and anything for that trip, that is what this is compensating for. So that is me putting in for my cruise. Then another sinking fund that I used this month was my car maintenance. I did get a car wash. I normally get a car wash once a month, so I'm going to take that out of car maintenance, and that was $10 there. The next thing that I had was an annual subscription payment. I told you guys I share Paramount Plus with my best friend, so I sent her money for that, and I'll just take that out of annual payments, and that was $30 I sent to her. And then the last thing was for the concert for my mom. I talked about that in my last video as well, and I shared that I was going to take that out of my travel sinking fund. So I just hit travel, and for 2 tickets for us, that was $270 that I paid for that. So again, this is just all the things that I took out of my sinking funds. And then as I added those things, we see that it took out the amounts related to those categories, and it brought down my overall savings for my sinking funds. So that is just how I track it. I find it easier just to separate it from my monthly budget because it really doesn't affect my regular spending. I kind of like to think of it as its own personal thing. Hopefully that provided some insight and it didn't confuse anybody. But now that we are completely done with March, let's go ahead and set up for April, because we have quite a few things happening. All right, everyone, so here we are for April at the start of a new month. In terms of April, I should be getting 2 paychecks. So my first paycheck should be April 4th, And then my second paycheck will be April 18th. So that is what we are working with. So just to set the tone of what is happening for myself within April, at the start of the month, I am going away for a week. I will be accounting for more spending that I may be doing because I am leaving for an event, and then I'm also meeting up with family. And then my mom is also coming at the start of April, and we are going to go to a concert together. We are going to go see Mary J. Blige. We are obsessed, or I should say my mother was obsessed with Mary J. Blige, so then of course I am in turn obsessed with her. So very excited about that. And of course I have to account for spending for that. And then it's a question mark of how the rest of the month is gonna go. So some surprise may come up, not sure yet, but just keeping all those things in the back of my mind. Overall, April just has quite a few things going on. And of course, I want to make sure I have myself covered financially for that. So just keeping all of those things in the back of my mind in terms of where I am putting these numbers. So let's just go ahead and get started with inputting for budget. For this month, I'm only anticipating my full-time income, so things should be back to normal. So $4,332 is what is coming in. And let's go ahead and divvy out where the money is going to go. So starting off with rent, of course, that's going to be $1,680 per usual. As for my utilities, I'm going to budget $50. I feel like that's in line, and we'll see how that comes in. Internet should be standard back to normal with $51. And for my electricity, I feel like I can bring it down slightly. We are inching into spring, so I haven't been using my heat as much. So I'm hopeful that the bill is going to be reasonable this month. So I'm going to budget $150 within there. And then of course for rollover, we will come back to that. So now we can move on to my expenses. For gas for the month, I'm going to budget $60. Probably go get gas 2 or 3 times this month, so $60 should cover for that. In terms of my spending, I am going to make this higher than normal. I'm going to put $300 in there just to cover me for my week trip. When I go on my week trip, I don't want to take that out of my travel sinking fund. I slowly want to just take the funds out of spending. The only thing that I will take out of the travel sinking fund is for the hotel. We are staying in a hotel for the week, so just taking out money for travel within there for that. But everything else in terms of like everyday spending and any extra things that I want, it will be coming out of that account. In terms of groceries, I brought it down a little bit, so I'm just going to say about $230. Hopefully will be good enough for the month within there. Toiletries, I'm going to do $90, and clothing will be $60, and eating out I'm going to put at $80. So hopefully that is good. And now we can move on to my savings. With my sinking funds, gonna keep them where they normally are. So annual payments is gonna get $45, car maintenance $40, car insurance is gonna get $80, Christmas will get $40, gifts will get $20, household and medical, I'm gonna leave those at $0. I feel like I'm at the cap for both of those sinking funds, so I don't want to continuously keep adding to them. So they're good so far right now. Travel is looking like I can add $295, so we're gonna leave that there. And then for my emergency fund, I want to do $650 for the month within there. All right, so then we have my Roth IRA, and for the month we're going to do $400, and hopefully we can achieve all of that. So rolling back to the top, we see we have $1 left. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in my rollover, and there we are at a $0-based budget. So looking at the income summary, we are starting with $4,332. For bills, I'm expecting to pay $1,932. For my expenses, I'm budgeting $820. For savings, budgeted $1,170, and then investments at $400. Looking at the pie chart, that is bringing us to bills at about 45%. Expenses are rolling to 19%, savings at 27%, and investments at 9.3%. So doesn't look too bad. I'm happy with those numbers. I feel like I can work with it just given the uncertainty that April may bring. But as of right now, I feel like that's a good plan and a good starting point. So the last thing that I'm going to do is just go down here and add my rollover, as I said. So the way we ended in March, I'm just going to add these numbers so that then once I begin to spend for the month and start adding my items to my tracker, it's going to deduct the spending that I've done. So gas we saw ended with $91, spending had $100, groceries was at $172, toiletries had $95, clothing had $8, and eating out with $47. So overall for the month, I feel like that is a good plan. We're gonna wish the best for April, and that's gonna wrap how I'm gonna set up for the month. All right, you guys, I feel like that was a little bit of a chatty video. I am out of breath, so hopefully that wasn't too long, and I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know how your March went, because I can't be the only one that felt like it was just a lot going on. So let me know down below how it is for you, how you're setting up for April. We are finished with the first quarter of the new year, so I feel like now is a good time to reflect on any of your 2025 goals, see how you're tracking with it. Let me know. I hope you are on track and doing well. So if not, this is the call to say you got 9 months left so we can try and get ourselves back in order. But anyway, as I said, hope you guys enjoyed. Leave some comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. That really does help and support. Share it with anybody that you think will find benefits in it. But as for today, that is all I have. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time in my next video. Bye guys.